The table was sticky, and someone had spilled something sugary that hadn't been wiped properly. The edge of the napkin clung to Jimin's sleeve when he shifted. The lounge was dim, but not dark, washed in a low red glow that didn't hide anything, just made it harder to look directly. The stage was out of sight from this back booth, but the sound of heels on varnished wood cut through the ambient murmur like a cough that hadn't been stifled. No one looked twice, not until the voice. A woman's voice, sharp, unsteady, not drunk enough to be dismissed, not quiet enough to be ignored. "Why are you here?" It didn't sound like a question at first, more like a reaction, a reflex. Her phone wasn't up yet. That came 2 seconds later. Too fast, too obvious. The light from the screen flicked up onto her face, and something passed through the crowd like static. Not a scream, not even a whisper, just that rearranging of posture, the sudden stillness of a waitress balancing drinks too carefully, the guy in the cap 2 booths over freezing mid-laugh. "It's not him," someone muttered. "It's not." But he didn't move, and that was the mistake. That was what made the doubt crack. A stuttered, "Wait," someone stepping back into someone else, the sound of a camera shutter too close. Then, the silence, but not clean, not full. Just that strained drop in volume, as if everyone was pretending not to stare, pretending not to know, pretending not to decide what to do. And Jimin, still seated, one hand on the edge of the sticky table, didn't speak, didn't deny, didn't leave. The girl didn't back away. Her phone was angled low, like she was trying not to record, but her fingers trembled, and she kept glancing at the screen, as if she couldn't decide whether to press. Behind her, the shape of the room shifted. A dancer paused mid-pose on the stage and didn't resume. A bouncer near the bar turned slightly, not moving toward the scene, but no longer pretending not to watch. The music didn't cut out, but it faltered. Someone fumbled the playlist, and for a few seconds the bass dropped into a wrong rhythm, too slow, too hollow. "I'm sorry," she tried again, but it wasn't clear to whom she was speaking. Herself, maybe, or him, or the phone. Someone near the bar laughed, not at the situation, just a dry bark at something else, but the timing was wrong, and the sound landed like mockery. Jimin's hood was still up, not covering much in this light, just making the shape of him too deliberate. A man at the next table leaned slightly, trying not to look, failing. One of the girls near the wall pulled her coat tighter, even though it wasn't cold. Another woman whispered something to the bartender, something about "that guy in the corner," and her eyes flicked toward Jimin without focus. Nobody said his name out loud, not yet, but it was in the air, in the neck tension, in the way one guy unlocked his phone under the table, in the girl who edged closer to the bathroom but didn't go in, just stood halfway between decision and performance. The question, "Why are you here?" hadn't been answered, and now it didn't need to be. Now it was burning in everyone's throat, making their hands twitch and their eyes move too fast. Not because they knew, but because they almost did. The third flash didn't come from the girl. It came from behind the bar, someone trying to sneak a photo with the flash still on. The click was sharp, unnatural, and it cut through the murmurs like a dropped tray. Heads turned, but no one claimed it. The bartender flinched and barked something. Too late, too loud, and then looked away like it hadn't mattered. Jimin still hadn't moved. That was part of the tension now. That stillness that had started to look like defiance, or paralysis, or both. The woman with the coat had stopped pretending to scroll her phone. She was filming, openly now, with her arm half hidden under the table, but the camera unmistakably pointed at him. Another girl moved behind her, trying to get a better angle without looking like she was moving. There was a crash. Glass, maybe, somewhere in the back, but no one turned. All attention had contracted. The lounge had become a single point. "That's not him," someone whispered again, softer, and this time the lie didn't land. Jimin blinked. That was all. Just blinked. And the whisper died. Another person, younger, maybe 19, mouthed his name. Not loud, not clear. Just the shape of it, slow and disbelieving. That was enough. It shattered the thin membrane holding the crowd in doubt. The girl who asked the question took a step back like she'd been pushed. The guy in the cap lifted his phone. 2 more followed. One tried to speak and didn't. No one was screaming. No one was sure what they were watching. And that was worse, because it meant they couldn't look away. Someone near the door laughed again, this time shorter, nervous, a reflex without reason, and immediately covered their mouth, as if the sound had betrayed them. The bouncer finally moved, but not toward Jimin. He walked along the edge of the room in a wide arc, eyes scanning the shifting crowd, pretending to manage something else. No one was pretending anymore. Not really. Phones were up, yes, but hesitantly, half concealed, as if everyone filming hoped not to be the one caught filming. A girl in a silver dress leaned over her friend and whispered too loudly, "It really looks like him though, doesn't it?" Her friend nodded without looking up. Jimin still hadn't spoken. He wasn't hiding, but he wasn't explaining either. He was there. And that, somehow, was the worst part. He was just there, present in a space where he was never supposed to exist. A space that didn't fit, not because of fame, but because of context. Because this place wasn't blurry enough to be dismissed. It wasn't scandalous enough to be written off. It was just wrong, too ordinary to justify, too exposed to ignore. A man with a gold chain tapped his friend and pointed, not at Jimin, but at the phones. "Shit's gonna go viral," he said, almost excited. The girl who'd first spoken, the one who asked why, had sunk back into a side booth, hands still clenched around her phone, screen locked now, face pale. She didn't look like she wanted attention anymore. She looked like she wanted to disappear. The woman who'd been halfway to the bathroom had turned back, eyes darting between screens, trying to gauge whether it was too late to pretend she hadn't seen. It was too late. It had been too late since the second flash. From the hallway to the private rooms, a staff member in black passed through with a tray and glanced too long. Her eyebrows twitched, recognition half formed, and she didn't stop walking. Just turned her head a little, just enough. The dancer who had paused earlier was gone now, replaced. The music had started again, but lower, like it had been adjusted manually, not to set a mood, but to make it worse. Background enough to hear the clicks of phone cameras. Background enough to hear someone mumble, "He's just sitting there." And he was. One hand resting on the table, the other on his lap, eyes unfocused, maybe on the wall, maybe on nothing. He wasn't covering his face. He wasn't playing a role. He looked like a person who hadn't left fast enough, and now couldn't. The strangest thing was, no one had asked for an autograph. No one had screamed. No one had said his name out loud. But it was already happening. The recognition wasn't clean. It was a slow-motion implosion. A girl at the edge of the room started crying, not loud, just a few tears, as if something had snapped inside her worldview, and she didn't know what to do with it. She held up her phone anyway. Her flash was off. The tension was not. It didn't snap all at once. There was no scream, no final shout, no moment where the lights came on and everyone knew what to do. It unfolded like something leaking, a slow breach that everyone pretended wasn't happening, even as they moved to get a better view. A group of girls near the bar had clustered together, whispering too urgently, pretending to laugh, but glancing over each other's shoulders between every sentence. One of them had started streaming, low quality, tilted angle, comments already flooding in. She wasn't saying it was him. She didn't need to. The caption was enough. "This can't be real, right?" Someone dropped a glass, not out of shock, just bad timing. But the sound landed like punctuation, and everyone flinched like it meant something. The bouncer took another step forward, then stopped. His job wasn't written for this. A dancer emerged from the back hallway in full costume, saw the shape of the crowd, and froze in place, her hand still adjusting a strap. For a moment, everything held. The music looping on a too slow tempo, the low hum of phones connecting, the people balancing between recognition and paralysis. Then came the first real mistake. A man, middle-aged, not drunk enough to excuse it, turned on his flash, stood fully upright, and said, "Yo, if that's really Jimin, I'm getting a picture." The words weren't shouted, but they didn't have to be. They were loud in the way that only a public truth can be, the kind of sentence that collapses the possibility of pretending. Every phone lifted, every face turned, the lie of uncertainty dissolved. A few people laughed again, too loud, too sharp, not because it was funny, but because no one knew what else to do. Someone tried to say, "It's a look-alike," and failed halfway through. The girl who'd first spoken was crying now, quietly, not like a fan in pain, but like someone realizing she had set something in motion she couldn't reverse. The staff didn't intervene. They looked away, but not far enough to miss it. Jimin still hadn't moved, but now it looked deliberate, or fatal, or both. His name rippled through the room in fragments. "Jimin, no, it is, he's still just, what is he?" None of it formed a sentence, just shards. And then, a flash, bright and brutal, from too close. Someone had leaned in. Someone had crouched beside the table, eyes wide, phone up, lips parted like he was about to say something and forgot. Jimin turned his head slightly. Just that, not fast, not slow, not with meaning. And the room lurched, because it confirmed, because it collapsed the last thread of doubt, because in that moment, everyone knew. Not just that it was him, but that he knew they knew. That he wasn't moving, that he wasn't stopping them, that he wasn't doing anything. And that absence of motion was louder than a scream. A woman near the wall backed into a chair. A guy at the bar stood up and left his drink. One of the girls on live ended the stream mid-comment, like she realized too late that watching was worse than sharing. The tension stopped feeling like discovery and started feeling like guilt. Not his, theirs. And yet, no one left. They just shifted. Eyes up, phones out, breathing uneven, as if trying to decide if they were still spectators or already part of it. The moment didn't end. It just sat there, heavy and unfinished, like a word hanging mid-sentence. And that's where it stayed.